Hey everyone, Arthur Fantastic here, aka the Hot Shot, aka the Golden Ruffian, here back again, part 4, responding to Gil Alcocer about pulling guard in our series, Sitting Guard is Disingenuous. Moving on in this video, we're just going to be going into a whole bunch of him, once again, creating strawmen, creating things that people have never said, taking things to a level, taking those straw men and taking them to a level of ridiculousness that no one has ever even intimated at, and then being very smug about making said straw men and destroying them. People need to understand what begging the question is, a number of logical fallacies, which I try to point out. I'm not an expert by any means, but I'm doing my best to do a breakdown of what is logically erroneous, factually erroneous. It's just what he's doing is the same thing over and over again. But the reason I chose this video in the first place is because these are the arguments of the pulling guard side, or the sitting guard. And as he oscillates on what is, pulling guard with the right grips, but if he makes you butt scoot, then really it's his fault. A lot of shifting of blame, as well as just sort of switching around what is actually happening through rhetorical devices and manipulative, deceiving language. Finally, the last thing I just want to highlight is that he is, in many ways, he is just pre-assuming that he's right and everybody else is wrong, and is approaching this argument in bad faith. Like, he's just really just, okay, how do I get into these people's heads? Well, they're wrong and they're idiots, so I'll just develop wrong, idiotic arguments. And this is why this video that he's making is constantly asking questions that he won't answer. Rather, he is just using these questions to make you think, oh, well, that's ridiculous. There's a difference from an argument or reduction ad absurdum, or absurdum, whatever, where you take a person's argument, take it to the extreme, and to show its absurdity. There's another where you just literally say something that the person didn't say, or the other side isn't saying, or maybe like one person on the periphery is saying, you know what I mean, some ridiculous like exception or outlier, and then use that to muddy the waters on what we're actually talking about. Sure, there are people out there that say a lot of dumb stuff, but if we really come to a reasonable, logical or a conversation, and try to pin down the principles of combat and what we're trying to actually obtain from competition, we should be able to come to reasonable conclusions that are going to not only just help us as a martial artist, becoming a more complete martial artist, but maintain a level of realness so that the intensity that we're preparing for and creating strategies for are prepared for in a real way. Not a, well, I'm going to sit down in front of a person if I'm going to be in a fight, and it's no worries, they're going to come to me. And I'll just go to fucking submit them and fucking give them an old Della Eva. The self-defense MMA in some places even allow fucking stomps and fucking kicks to the face and dick kicks, and everybody knows you're a black belt until you get punched in the face, and then you're a purple belt, you get punched again, and then you're dropping down all the way to white. I've skipped brown. I skipped blue. You're dropping 2, because once you get hit in the face, and especially if you're not prepared, you have lost a lot by just getting punched in the face. If you haven't prepared for it, like, oh, okay. Not, oh, I've been punched in the face. I prepared every once in a while. I prepared for this. Don't twist my words, guys. If a person is not ready to be punched in the face, getting punched in the face will change things. And for people who are prepared to get punched in the face and train this way, train to with strikes, they don't train to get struck in the face. They train to clinch, avoid being struck, and impose their will on the opponent. And, there's a place for all of these things that we see and are discussing that I might deride in some parts. There's places for wrestle ups. There's places for, if you're on the ground, to be able to use an open guard. There's places for all this stuff. If a person wants to engage you while you're sitting down, that's fine too. But if they back up, you have to follow them too, or that's a double stall. Well, you're both backing up. You scoot up toward them. Get the fuck up on your feet. This is combat. You don't get to fucking, oh, well, I just want to move myself there and continue this game we're playing. He doesn't want to play that game, so you better fucking move in a reasonable, legitimate way. These are just like a, highlight of fucking points that I'm trying to just accrue to sort of underline the issues and highlight the need to talk about these said issues. And also I'm trying to propose a number of solutions. There is not one solution. There are a number of solutions. I think rule sets, multiple rule sets are needed to keep things fresh and to be changing the rules from season to season or from time to time, so that people who get used to gaming the system no longer can game it as easily, all right, or have to figure out a new way, okay? This is what we see in video games with the updates and the fine-tuning of the rules and balancing of the game, because while some people have the spirit of competition, being I'm trying to do my best and be my best and win, there's totally legitimate of like trying to win on points and sometimes at the end of a match, trying to just consolidate your position and win, especially when we're looking at tournaments. And there has to be that realization that there's a difference between a one-off match and bracketed matches or round-robin tournaments. But all that being said, that's stuff that we can talk about after we shut down all these dumb arguments from Gil Alcocer that don't make any sense. And I'm going to try to, once again, there's like another 10 minutes. We're going to pick up from the end of the last one. I just want to say a couple more words on his point and try to, get bigger chunks out there and get to the bulk of this video before I get into another hour of content. And you guys are liking it. I love it. If you guys want me to clip these up and maybe put them into smaller segments, let me know in the comments below. Let me know what you think so far. And once again, we're trying to create a cohesive, solid argument, get the conversation going in the comments, make your arguments. If you wanted to take my arguments and then consolidate them or, sort of like compress them and crystallize them so that they're much more concentrated than these multiple part series of City Guard is Disingenuous, where I'm going literally point by point, almost sentence by sentence, not leaving anything out, continuing whatever his point is going to be and following through to that point, so that no one can say that this was, he didn't address all the points or this was edited deceptively. No, we're going to go through the entire thing. I'm going through this thing, sitting down here for quite some time and then editing it. I try to do minimal editing, guys. I know you guys are watching and, there's not a lot of frills on these videos because there's a lot of fucking just bullshit talking that I'm doing. But I do try to keep you guys engaged, things here and there and titles or whatnot. But, thank you for watching. We're getting into the video now. I appreciate you sitting through my 10-minute intros all the time and, let's get to it.
approach their guard and start to try to pass, start to grapple. Walking away and acting like you're too good to grapple with someone who pulled guard, that's just insane to me. This isn't wrestling. This isn't the sport of takedowns. It's a sport of submission grappling. So grapple.
Again, as I said, you might think that I'm being repetitive, but it's baked into his arguments. Every single point that, people who are arguing the other side are just wrestlers or judoka who are not approaching it in bad faith. Oh, you're just too good for me. You're just acting like you're too good for engaging my guard. It's like, okay, do you see that false dichotomy? Do you see how he's trying to just manipulate your vision of what this person is doing to something that is less than necessary? It's deriding it. It's devaluing this idea of, you step away from me because you're too good to be in my guard. Okay, listen. You're too good to wrestle me by standing up, and instead you're pulling guard to the ground. Do you see once again how that's just, if you just take the same fucking logic, it's just garbage. It's just garbage rhetoric. And as he sees the other side as like dumb idiots who have no fucking arguments and are just acting too good, he also reveals it himself. Again, his bias for what he thinks grappling is just like, it's the guard work and people trying to pass the guard. That's like just one piece. There's just this one piece. There's north-south. There's cross-body. There's mount. There's back mount. There's back control with hooks. You might have some differentiation. There's head and arm. Okay, I like to go back to that point as always, where he's talking about Hafa and Krobinha, like they are elite grapplers and they're spending a lot of time on the feet because they do not want to give the top position to the other person. Are you going to give them the same fucking criticism and level of disrespect and derision? The entire match of Robert Drysdale versus Marcelo Garcia, who I spoke to recently, and I have the interview up on this channel. The entire match, which is like roughly over 2 or 3 minutes, just very short match, is all standing until the finish. Okay, which is finished with a Darce or a Bravo choke, I believe. And Robert Drysdale finishes Marcelo Garcia from the top position with the Darce. And there's a reason why you're trying to sweep to get on top. There's a reason why. So the whole point of going for the takedown is to put yourself in a more advantageous position when you get to the ground, because you are in a less, like, he's gonna say it and he's gonna give it the quote, a less advantageous or a disadvantaged position, whatever that wording he uses. Does that mean that you don't have to engage the other person? They have to engage you? That's ridiculous. What happens if you both sat down at the same time? Who has to move forward and pass the other person's guard? Should we just approach each other in scissors and just scoot toward each other, scissoring each other? Like, it's ridiculous. That's what's insane. That we can have that type of shit, that our rule set and our sport can have that type of thing, where a ridiculous thing that I'm presenting is not only something that is possible or plausible, but has actually happened, and I've showed clips on it like a number of times on this video series. Go look it up. Double guard jumps. Just go double guard pulls. Look it up yourself. I'm done with having to go download those videos and then put them back in here, okay? So that's the first point. Already in a bad position. He's showing his bias against the opposing side. He's biasing for what he sees as grappling, where what his conceptual understanding of what grappling is. It's fucking the guard, and that grappling doesn't involve wrestling. Wrestling is its own thing. That's its own thing. It's not another portion of grappling.
The next one, I hear it's boring. I keep hearing that pulling guard is killing the sport because it makes it boring. Again, how is pulling guard make a match boring?
So here we go again. Gil's just begging the question. How is pulling guard make it boring? I'm so upset. Let me show my emotion on video. Like, no, seriously. Or do you really want to know? Because people seem to be trying to talk to you about it, and you immediately look at them as idiots and dismiss them. And then you beg the question, how does it make it? Well, I can, as throughout this entire series, I've numbered a number of things that makes it boring, but I'll try to be concise here in this small blurb. It is disingenuous, thus creating a atmosphere where the tension has been considerably reduced because a person can just sit down. And not only when a person sees this as disingenuous, just instinctually, when a person doesn't understand it, because that first category of is disingenuous is seen by both people that are hardcore fans and casual fans alike. When people who don't understand it see it, that makes it boring to them. Like, I don't understand why someone would do this. It looks like a child reaching up to be picked up by their parent, sitting on their butt with their arms like this, pick me up. Okay. So when we look at that type of thing, that's boring. Okay. Having a little patty cake game with a person sitting on their butt isn't in any other sport some type of thing that seems exciting. Okay. This skipping of the wrestling, right, is something that we have to, for a moment, while we're trying to be concise on why it's boring, magnify in, zoom in, and see what's the problem here. The expectation when two people fight is they start standing and they have to take the other person to the ground so that they can strike them on the ground or, grapple them, impose their will on top, and dominate. You know what I'm saying? Some combat sports don't even involve groundwork. You just start standing, and when a person goes to the ground, you just let them up. So that's the general understanding of combat sports. Some people don't even look at the ground as a place to fight. Okay? For grappling, that is the very place that we fight. Now, the whole idea of competing against two people, not just working on different positions or grappling in the gym, is to recreate a fight under some constraints. Okay, this is the ecological approach. You could look at it like that, or you could look at it, as I said in other times, like a dungeon master or a game designer, and looking at that the people involved as players, and how we can make this a good, fair, genuine, and exciting place to compete, all underpinned by the idea of actual combat. Okay, there are many ways to have constraints, and that is a bit subjective, I will admit. You know what I mean? That I wouldn't want to see all of that leave the grappling world. As I said, that there's places for this. I just think that it's not a legitimate, genuine way to just sit down, right? I have a grip, I let go, now I'm sitting guard, and to butt scoot. But there are legitimate times where you could play an open guard from the bottom. I just think that it's a very transitional, limited place where people shouldn't get comfortable because of weapons like stomps, kicks, knees. All right, we go to a back to this standing portion, right? We're going back to this image of what it looks like when two people are fighting. You know, to knee a person, to kick a person, for most of people who aren't, you know, flexible in the face, to do pretty much do any kind of imposing of will on someone, you have to first control them in the clinch, in the close wrestling zone of ranger zone, to even knee or, you know, really kick a person, like push their head down and then kind of like kick them like a, you know, like a, almost like a punt, but not so much. You know what I mean? You got to keep the pressure behind the head. I digress. It's in this way that when we remove those strikes and we get comfortable with those strikes not being there, that we become this amorphous blob of, oh, well, I can invert upside down and crawl toward them on my fucking shoulders. You know what I mean? There is a place to invert upside down, and even might necessarily need to move on your shoulders. There might be a time where donkey guard is applicable and you should be able to use it, or, you know, you might have a move that really goes well with donkey guard, whatever the heck. You know what I mean? Like you use scissor takedowns and it really fails all the time, and you find yourself on all fours with them behind you between your legs. Okay, you know what I mean? There's a space for these moves and the transitions thereof, undoubtedly. My problem with it being disingenuous is, as I've highlighted, and I've had actual comments despite me saying this every video, that it's not sumigashi, it's not tomonagi, it's not wrapping a person up and really trying to take them into another position as soon as it's just, I grip you, I sit down, and I scoot towards you. I also have a problem with jumping guard because of how often that causes catastrophic injuries. You know, in a moment, Gil's going to talk about catastrophic injuries or injuring somebody from a takedown. The most likely injury, as we discussed in Sitting Guard is Disingenuous Part 3, is from people jumping and dropping all their weight on the other person and causing them to, you know, hold their weight up. This is where people get their knees turned backwards, people jumping into guard, literally just jumping into the knee. Similar situation with people who don't do the scissor takedown correctly, and they hinge in as opposed to in a circular motion. And there's ways to fix that, as with like a cutbacker. And I digress because I know the grappling nerds are watching this, you know what I mean, and we can have these conversations in the comments. So, yeah, no, this guy is fucking not getting it, and it seems like he doesn't want to get it. And if he just took the time to actually listen to the people who are saying that it's boring, they'll tell you why it's boring, right? The few that I named here, it seems disingenuous. People don't get it. It looks like a child, and therefore there's not a lot of entertainment value. That's not a person looking like trying to get around a really fast child so he can pick him up and change their diaper isn't an exciting thing. You know what I mean? Unless you're trying to treat it as that thing, and then maybe you could add wacky music and it could be a fun game show, but it's not a combat sport. And it's just people, the expectation and the understanding, which is pretty close to what actual combat is, I won't lie, of two people starting standing and not trying to give up the bottom position to the other person, is a legitimate way to fucking go into combat. All right, please don't go into combat pulling guard or falling back into some type of open guard or just gripping a person. For the love of God, grapple them and get on top and dominate them.
Before these new rules change, I would say like 95% of every submission grappling match, one person's on bottom and one person's on top. It's literally our sport. Our sport is grappling, and most of grappling is done. One person on top, one person on bottom. So how is starting pulling guard make it boring? It's the sport. The sport is the grappling.
All right, he goes on once again, a ridiculous rant. spouting out nonsense that just makes no, like, what a watered down view of what grappling matches have been. Like, before these rule changes, which I don't know what the fuck he's talking about, what rule changes he's talking about, that you can't pull guard in the finals in ADCC. I don't think that you ever could. Pulling guard has been penalized for a long time. Can't pull jump guard because you can't jump guard now, because it's so dangerous that promotions and leagues have been making it illegal. Like, what are we talking about? Rule change. Regardless, he is talking about that grappling is one person. I could say the same thing about an MMA match or a wrestling match. That 95% of these matches, are about one person on top and one person on bottom. But it's like, that's not the only thing that happened in that match. It's like, how did they get there? Okay? Did one person just concede, lay on their back, and almost 95% of the old school matches and MMA, almost 100% in fact, you will not see a person just conceding the bottom. Even Helio Gracie, in one of his matches, was one of those judoka / catch wrestlers that he had, that he lost, because he lost a lot of times. He got taken down like 42 times. How do you get taken down 42 times? Because you're getting back up and trying to get the other person down. You don't get taken down by just sitting on the ground. That's not how they tallied up takedowns. Okay? So when we look at that type of information and then see him, Hoist Gracie went for takedowns. Okay? Jesus. Hickson went for takedowns. He had knee pads. He had fucking white knee pads with his white shorts, his white Valetudo shorts, right? And he would go for takedowns. They weren't great, you know what I'm saying? That's fine. They were effective for the fights that he was in. He did what was necessary, okay? And that's good. That is absolutely good. Would they match up well to a later version of themselves that have now developed more wrestling and developed their systems more? Probably not. You know what I mean? I think that an older Hickson would beat younger Hickson's ass. The same thing with Hoist. Because they've developed, you know what I mean? And it's, they developed their wrestling for the later MMA matches. Maybe their early MMA matches, they were, just all Gracie, but they're cross-training all the time too. So this whole conversation is just insisting on like an ahistorical view as well as a strawman strawman arguments posed by fucking idiots. That's what he thinks of this other side. But once again, that's not what grappling is. One person being on top, one person being on top bottom. It is vying for the control and to dominate the other person. And it doesn't just start with one person. It's like, unless you want to start matches like one person in guard, one person passing, like that isn't just grappling. You don't just get into position. It's in dancing, right? If you guys watch that show, America's Best Dance Crew or whatever, there was some critiques for the Jabberwockies, which could be arguably one of the best dance crews of that time, if not all time. Or maybe they're overrated. Who knows? I don't know. But they were killing it on that series. And one of the things that they weren't doing right, where they're kind of just like running or walking into position to the next thing. And the judges were kind of right. They're like, you're just like running into position. You're just kind of like going into that anime run or whatever the fuck that is. Like, you're dancers. Dance into the position. Dance, monkey. So I don't think you should be able to just sit down and get into a position that you like. You like grapple into that position, monkey. You know what I'm saying? Like, grapple into that position. Go into a low single and then sit up into a fucking shin on shin. I don't fucking know. There are tons of other fucking ways than just sitting down and then reaching out to a person and acting as if that's going to fucking be a legitimate way to contest anything outside of a referee watched, referee enforced, judges watched on a padded mat competition. Outside of that, and in a padded room that you get to play around with all your friends because we're crazy people in padded rooms, outside those two areas, in reality, you should never have sit fucking guard. And so once again, just to make sure that everyone's getting a large portion of the arguments that I'm pushing together in this video that I'm taking and bringing forth from the first three, bringing forth, I say in my fur cape, that when you allow this type of gaming in the competition, people are going to play those games and prepare for a competition. That's what most training of martial arts is the training for a competition. You know what I mean? Training the art as if it was going to be competed in. We're talking about in class, and what we're sometimes, if not entirely, orienting ourselves to what is happening and allowed in competition. In fact, I'm arguing with somebody on Instagram about someone who got picked up all the way in an armbar, but the other person can slam them. And so the whole thing was, after they picked them up all the way, their entire body weight, they had to put them lightly back on the ground. And then the other person extended them and locked out the armbar. There should be some type of penalty if you get picked up past like waist height. Okay? Because waist height still on fucking like concrete is pretty fucking bad. Okay? Whether it's a reset, whether it's it should be something very significant, because you shouldn't let someone pick you up. I was raised in an area where there were slams in competitions, whether it was legal or not. People were fucking going at it, and the Brazilians in that era were kind of fucking fast and loose with the rules and who was preferred and not, as it's not coming as much that now. But there's a lot of talk about that type of thing. But it was like the Wild West back then. I saw somebody, they were passing someone else's guard. And I think it was at this place called Planet Submission, this competition. And they grabbed both legs in a, double ankle lock position, if you will. He was controlling both ankles. And he got like a giant swing, if anyone's familiar with King from Tekken or pro wrestling, where he started spinning and that centrifugal force had him like horizontal to the ground, and then he let him go and he flew off the mat onto the judges table where there was just concrete. It was just, it's just fucking a venue. The floor is fucking concrete. Fucking insanity. Just like that don't let somebody that can happen. Okay? That in my mind is fucking branded in my brain. As well as other things that have happened where I just threw someone and they fucking got knocked out. I didn't mean to knock them out. I wasn't being malicious. There was people that I've seen in competition as well as online where, catastrophic injuries because they picked up or they fell or they rolled the wrong way. I'm like, I need to be training so that I'm never in that type of position. I'm prepared for that type of scenario with my body to be resistant to that type of movement or capable of enduring that type of movement via flexibility or strength, and knowing where my body needs to be. And still, there could be a time where it slips my mind and I fucking catch myself on my hand or some shit. You know what I'm saying? That's something that we have to carry and bear as people who are competitors and fighters and wrestlers. Like, we accrue damage, right? But when you see shit that doesn't have to happen, you know what I mean? That would have been worse if that person wasn't on a padded room, or, people are strong out there. There are people who are strong that don't do any martial arts. They're just naturally strong. If you haven't been humbled enough to fucking go against somebody that who just walks in the room and it's just like, wow, that guy's just like an athlete. You know what I mean? And sure, I can maybe out technique him, but if he becomes a technical person, he will fucking be a monster to be reckoned with, right? You know, we've all had these thoughts while training with people, newbies or people who from other sports, whatever it is. Person who just, I did nothing before, really. It's just that they're, whatever it's that rigidity or whatever it is, their strength, their explosiveness, their willing, their mindset, it's just there. Okay? And training with people like that makes you realize that there's more to this sport than just fucking I'm gonna pull guard. You know what I mean? Like they don't know. They don't know all the rules. Or am I allowed to slam? Am I allowed to do this? Am I allowed to do that? You, as the person who is experienced, has to be prepared to deal with that. You know what I mean? Like they don't know. You can't let them pick you up. You don't know what these people are. In fact, I made that mistake again. I've made this mistake before, and unfortunately, I don't like making mistakes twice. But I'd taken years off because of an injury. I let somebody pick me up who was a newbie, and they slammed me to the ground. When you train with somebody that's experienced, you're like, oh, you picked me up, you're gonna put me down. We'll keep working from there. I'll concede that you have the fucking you could ragdoll me or whatever the fuck. You're way bigger than me. You know what I'm saying? But that's not what happened. You know what I mean? And that fucking I aggravated my injury, and then I had another injury, now a new one that I had never had before. You know what I mean? And it's just like that was fucking my fault in part. You're like him, like take care of your fucking obviously like you don't fuck up your football teammates or your basketball teammates. You don't fuck up your fucking martial arts teammates. And I'm taking it easy on him. That's another thing that I was doing wrong. I shouldn't have not have been, let him pick me up. I could have stopped him, but I'm like, like we're working through this. I have a little bit of flow thing going on right now. And then I was like, see, I made a mistake there. Okay. We make these mistakes, and it's a mistake to let somebody pick you off the ground. It's a mistake to go right to your butt where you're the most vulnerable in a situation of combat. All right. If in this specific place with pads and these constraints is the only place that you can do it, you might want to reconsider it being this thing that you spend all this time dedicated to. Okay. Sure, you can develop all these things. You can hyper develop anything you fucking want. Who the fuck am I? But you look at like BJJ players, look at wrestlers. They have a whole bunch of shit like that where it's just like about like tilts. And there's some shit from those tilts that you could use and play with and create fucking, I've been playing a lot with that actually lately, using my old leg riding stuff and tilts and, how a Jonesy tilt is like a better version of a fucking scissors takedown and more safe on your opponent. Whatever those, there's things there to look at, right? But I'm not tilting a person in fucking BJJ to get back points. You know what I mean? I might want to ride on top and pin a person. I might want to get on top and use some of these grips and understandings that I learned from the tilts. But I'm not going to just tilt a person and wait for back points to be counted out. And I'm not going to do that in a real fucking fight neither. So in reality, guys, okay, we all intuitively know there's shit that we don't fucking want to just spend our time in when we look at shit like that. But because we might be really good at fucking pulling guard and scooting on the bottom, why can't I just fucking play this game that I like to play? You can in your gym at home. You can have your own competition, but let's not fucking fool ourselves and recognize that there's something that we're developing here that is not congruent to real combat, and we need to assess if that's something that we want to highlight and encourage in our competition setting of our art, which is where we're really trying to make sure the art is applicable and that individuals might want to test themselves and make sure that their style is capable of doing something that's really not, because we all have that mind, like I've been training with these guys for so long, you know what I mean, not all of us, but are the competitors. Maybe I need to go against somebody that's not, or maybe I just want to. I want to go see if I am as good as I think I am outside this little pond. You know what I mean? You know, we have to understand that these devices and tools that we've created and structures are not to be misused, because when they can become misused and no one wants to play them and compete or watch, or and it stops growing, it becomes stagnant, you're like, oh yeah, BJJ is really growing. Yeah, not the viewership of BJJ events. Okay, so let's like not kid ourselves. Like, it's like a niche of a niche are watching jiu-jitsu events, and like, yeah, they can make money off it and it's doing all right, and you know, people are starting to get paid and stuff like that, but there are boundaries that will cause there to be a ceiling that we won't be able to pass, a threshold. And I'm discussing this because I love jiu-jitsu, American jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, catch wrestling, judo. I love it. And I'm making this video not because I fucking hate this guy. I hate his arguments. Yeah, his voice is starting to fucking, you know, I've been making these videos for like a couple weeks now. You know what I mean? I waited to release them after I left Vegas, for which I was there for. I was there for several things, but among them to speak to Robert Drysdale, who is super cool, super gracious, allowed me to come to his gym. And I had been recording them for some time before that, so you know, who knows when this video comes out? It might be in the new year. So on to the next point, but I spent like 17 minutes on that 1/22 fucking thing, but we've discussed so much. Don't forget this moment that you had with me, and take it to heart and consider what I'm saying, so that we can really, because once again, I love grappling. We want grappling to be more than just us nerds in the back room. You know what I'm saying? You know, I'm not a purist. I don't want to. Oh, there should be never ever a time where someone's on their ass. It should be just. There's fucking times. I think that I think that is purist. Maybe I'm the purist then. You know what I'm saying? Who knows what the fucking purist is? It's a bit subjective. But I'm not the purist that's like, that you would call them purist to be gracious, but really they're cult, like hive minds that are like, like this isn't wrestling.
Telling me, if someone pulls guard and the other person doesn't have the opportunity to score 2 points, or that very slight chance they don't have the opportunity to injure somebody and win the fight through the takedown, that now a person passing and a person playing guard is boring. That's what you're telling me. But let's say they got their 2 points first for the takedown. Now it's not boring.
Now, I pointed this out before, and I'm not sure if he's being purposefully myopic, like he's like doing this on purpose, but I can't help but need to point it out again. Now, first, he discusses how the person is only either getting 2 points or an opportunity to get 2 points, or an opportunity to injure the other person. If we just zoom out and look at takedowns without a insanely biased view of it, we'll see that the takedown is an important part of the chain which determines who's on top when they go to the ground. Now, that doesn't matter to a person that just likes being on bottom. It doesn't fucking matter, because a person on bottom is also probably going to be good on top. But when a person is really good on top, that it makes the person who's going to be on bottom fear it. And the other person is also good on top, that the person on bottom is going to fear that other person be on top, or respect the other person's game on top, that they don't want to play that game at all. They want to be the person on top. They favor the top position. Now, two people who favor the top position are going for it. That's what Rafa and Cobrinha was. It wasn't about just points or trying to injure the other person, denying the other person a takedown, trying to get on top. There's a lot more going on there, okay? And getting to the ground when we're a bipedal upright species is requiring a takedown of some sort that puts the other person's hands on the ground and knees if possible, right? To start some type of grappling, right? Hands and feet minimum, right? Okay, so moving forward from that, he's also saying, well, if they did get the opportunity, they did get the two, well, it's not boring anymore. No, no one is saying these things. No one is arguing that they get an opportunity to injure their opponent. Though it is true that a person can get injured with a good takedown, right? Done in a vicious way, or even said proper way. But slamming from takedowns intentionally, as opposed to a high amplitude takedown, which is an interesting delineation in itself to talk about for another day, is that slamming from a takedown is illegal, and so is spiking. I was arguing at one point for slamming out of submissions, you know what I mean, or have some type of incentive if someone picks you up, is what I was talking about. But ADCC just skipped all that shit and said, no, well, if you put in a submission, you can slam. You can slam out of that submission. And so it's up to the person to not let picked up or let themselves be picked up. Okay? And that's two ways to go about it. The simple is the simple, but there's a lot of ways to get injured when you're upside down. And so that should be really put somewhere in the rules to incentivize a person not being picked up. Yeah, all right. Well, sorry, went into that again. When we talk about that, it's not boring anymore. No one is saying that. No one's saying any of these things. Once again, what they're saying is that it's disingenuous to just sit down there. Okay. Oh, well, I just like playing the guard there. Okay, so I like playing stand up. Okay, so you pull me down there or something. You can't just grab my hand, sit down and let go, and then now, oh, well, you have to grapple me. You have to fucking get down there with some connections. I am for that. I'm fine with that. That's, you know what I mean? The people say that's going to be dangerous. You know what I mean? If you go into some type of open guard, you know what I mean? Well, yeah. The people say the same thing about low singles. People use them all the time, though. People say that about fucking a whole bunch of takedowns. People fucking use those takedowns all the fucking time, though. Okay? All right? No one's just deriding certain things in the martial arts community. There's derision going all around. Oh, don't do this one and don't do that. I understand. I get it. Allow those to play out in combat. But in this case of, are we allowing this game to be gamed this way? This rule set to be gamed that way? Is that something that we want to encourage in our martial arts sport, the competition? It's like, no, we shouldn't want that.
If you don't like to watch a person on top and a person on bottom, one trying to pass a guard, one trying to play their guard and work a sweep or a submission, then you literally don't like submission grappling. You like wrestling or judo. And guess what? They have their own sport. You can go watch that and participate in that sport.
See how he does this again? He does it again. He falsely equates his own opinion of grappling to what a grappler should like, then derides people for liking other parts of grappling and that they should go to watch those specific constraint-led rule set sports. Because if you don't like passing guard and playing guard on bottom, then you don't like submission grappling. Once again, that is a ridiculous statement. That isn't the only part of grappling. Grappling is more than just guard work. Grappling is more than just passing the guard. And we have entire systems like the Gracie Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu system that shows you that there's more than just guard play. There's half guard. There's standing up. There's turtle. Now they're calling it the turtle guard. It was used to be called referee position, 4 points position. And there is more mixing and merging with wrestling today than there ever has been before. And I don't want to try to psychoanalyze this guy. You know what I mean? I just want to attack his arguments. And these arguments are absolutely just horse shit. What the fuck does it all mean? What does it mean that, well, if you don't like grappling, then you don't like submission? That's not what people are saying. They're saying that, and in this video specifically, sitting guard is disingenuous, but several forms of pulling guard that are, especially the ones that are not about the rule, where you just grip the fucking wrist and you sit down and then you let go. Or in many cases, like Mike Music matches where he just sits at range and then scoots in. That's literally what we're seeing. It's like, don't fucking gaslight us. It's fucking there. These are the fucking top portions of the fucking grappling world. And this is what it looks like. All right? Not for fucking Gordon Ryan. Gordon Ryan's going for takedowns. He'll wrestle a little bit. He's even a fucking scrimmage wrestling DVD. And he has his own thoughts on it. And he made sense. He's like, well, the constraints here in the grappling world is going to be different than what we're trying to attain in wrestling. So, we have to then make a system around an approach that isn't for just like wrestling, you know what I mean? Where I just get, like I was alluding to earlier, tilts. Like, I don't know, but there are reasons to use moves like the Merkle, you know what I mean? And well, those are things for other people to discuss. Maybe I'll discuss one day. BJJ Digest did a fucking amazing breakdown that is available both here on YouTube and Daily Motion. And I recommend it. The Merkle and its connection to whatever. It's just a case study. So sick. You know what I mean? He talked about a whole bunch of other things as well as like the funk roll, which I will be doing a video on soon as well. Needless to say, his argument is really kind of weak here, and it just kind of completely depends on him shaming you and we'll just go watch this other sport because this is what I think grappling is, and it's a very like ridiculous view of grappling, if I can say so myself. So on to the next point, which is going to be pretty ridiculous, and I'm going to shred that in a moment. I'm ready for it. I'm ready already.
The takedown is a fraction of a second. It's a fraction of a second of an entire fight, and you're telling me if you take that opportunity away from somebody, then the whole entire fight is boring, and the guy who pulled the guard is stalling.
Guys, the guard pass is a fraction of a second. A fraction of the second. So if someone walks away and denies you that a guard pass for that fraction of a second, you're saying that it's unfair and boring, and how's that stalling? Like, that's stalling. That's stalling. In fact, he said that's stalling. So the opposite is fucking ridiculous. He's only saying that for himself, and he's attempting to fool you and convince the viewer that, oh, well, takedown's a fraction of a second, takedown's a fraction. Well, the thing is, I'm more nuanced. I'm not so emotional about it, and I guess I'm more informed. Because I understand that a guard pass, though when it actually happens, it's a fraction of a second, like a knee cut pass. When you actually pass, when it's done, it's like a fraction of a second. Just like a takedown. But there was a whole bunch of work that you had to do to get up to that pass. There was probably several misdirections that you had to do if we're at the high level. Or there was a lot of pinning and working up the body that you had to do. And so on and so forth. I don't want to go through every little pathway that branching pathway that you might have to float over, whatever. The pass itself is a fraction of a second, but there's a lot of work that you had to go through. The same thing with the wrestling and the standing portion. Sure, the takedown was a fraction of a second, but they were fighting for minutes for that takedown. Yeah. Okay. Good. Let's not take the either away. Let's take away the begging of the question here, and let's take away the disingenuous portion of, oh, I'm just going to sit down and force you to pass me. Why? Why? That's a ridiculous. I might have to shoot a skit. I might have to shoot a skit just to show how absurd that is.
To take sitting guard to its logical conclusion, we're going to participate in a thought experiment. Imagine, if you will, a game where the objective is to shake the other person's hand, to get in contact with that person and shake their hand. I am going to recreate sitting guard in that game. Ready? Begin. Why aren't you shaking my hand? Why aren't you shaking my hand? What, ref? They're not doing anything and they're not shaking my hand. Shaking my hand. Shake my hand. Shake my hand. Shake my hand. And that concludes the thought experiment.
Now, needless to say, the whole idea that, oh, well, this fraction of a second means anything is dependent on you don't spend more than a fucking second, but more than a fraction of a second, in fact, thinking about it, because it's dumb.
I understand that the takedown, it can be exciting. That's a possibility. And it's a very tiny possibility it could result in a win from an injury off a takedown. But taking that tiny aspect away doesn't make the entire match boring. And also,
again, it's not about just injuring a person and winning off the takedown. The takedown is just a step in the grappling process. And I feel like he needs to adjust his little chart in his mind and possibly on paper of what grappling should look like in its chain by step process. Because if you forget that we're bipedal organisms, or species rather, then, unless he's walking on his knuckles, which maybe I wouldn't put it past him, you're not going to fucking be just getting into guard with people and people passing you. You know what I'm saying? Not everyone plays jiu-jitsu, so you might pull guard on someone, they just kick you in the balls. They don't know what the fucking rules are. Ever try to fucking sweep somebody and they fall on your balls and you didn't wear a cup? Some dude who trained with Charles Oliveira recently, fractured his dick and had to get surgery. Fucking what? Why would you put yourself in a position where you are literally above a person to drop all their weight on your cock? Okay, be careful, guys. Okay, be careful. Train with protection. And I mean a cup. So it's actually quite ironic that he begins his statement with, I understand that the takedown, I don't think he understands the takedown at all. The takedown's there to get someone to the ground so you're on top, okay? In any other situation, this would be the most advantageous striking position. Because we're under constraints on a padded room, let's not forget what the real world holds. So we should orient ourselves toward reality, not just a simple game that we play. Otherwise, we'll have an art that looks like karate, where people are just playing tag. When we know that I know, and I would say that derisively of some schools. I really do mean that derisively. But I also know, some people don't because of how fucking sports karate looks, that there are so many badass karateka out there that are still, and they downplay the ones that are out there now. They don't want to say, oh, well, he also does this, or he also does this. You have to be completely inundated with just karate to be a karate guy. You can't do other things. It's a little bit disingenuous from the world, too. It's just, the world has a really weird view of things, okay? And I can concede that if you just took away this one fucking thing, it won't make everything boring. But taking away the punt or the kickoff from a football game is going to take away from the visual and intellectual congruence of the game. All of a sudden the other side has the ball. Oh, they kick it to them. Oh, okay, that kind of makes sense because they want them to stay as far away from their end zone. Okay, that makes sense. We're going to take out takedowns. Even though combat normally wants the person who gets on top is automatically in the eye of most people winning. It's not necessarily true. not necessarily true, but for the most part, I would say 8 times out of 10, the person on top is winning. And that's for a reason, from beyond this just, intellectual pursuit, but an epigenetic thought pattern, in our fucking genes. You're like, oh, person on top, person top dominate. You know what I mean? So in that way, I can identify with Gil and knuckle dragging, but I don't understand his whole stance on getting from that two standing people position to this position and it making sense in any other setting. And that setting being competition and in the padded room. And should that be, we could play games in the fucking room. We can even have competitions like this that allow it, whatever. Should that be the mainstream allotment of the rules of people just dropping to the ground? I mean, as it coming from judo, it really doesn't make sense that they would be okay with this. Gracie was not okay. He would, as I said earlier in the video, he was in a match where he got taken down over 40 times. How the fuck does that happen? Because you keep getting up and you're trying to take the other person down to get on top. Okay? Doesn't mean that, you didn't try to sweep or anything like that. I didn't watch all these matches. It is more of a citation of a citation. Okay? But it's a reliable citation. You can check this from Robert Drysdale interview with, I think it was actually his on his channel, talking about the Gracies and Carlson Gracie and how much Carlson Gracie credit Carlson Gracie deserves. And I'm listen, guys, I'm a nerd about BJJ too. I'm a nerd about fucking guard play and fucking the development of no-gi jiu-jitsu in the modern era and the era before that, because I was already interested. Guys, I don't want people to be so, because I feel like people in the comments and even this guy, when he finally responds, if he ever does, is going to try to mislead people oh, this guy doesn't like jiu-jitsu, this guy. I've been fucking involved and fucking just immersed in grappling for more than 15 years. And I had the books of ADCC and grappling, and there was one that I had that I really missed, that I lost back in high school, that had some writings of Dean Lister, or it was it was multi grappling instructional. Regardless, that's what it was back in the day. You could get DVDs, I mean, maybe they suck, or VHS if it, that was still parallel at that time. I did have some VHSs. I started with the VHS, but they were these picture by picture instructionals that you could read. I had Randy Couture. I had the first Eddie Bravo one. I had a lot of them. And guys, I'm not against the guard. I want to just highlight that. I play the guard. I play open guard. Sometimes I'll be like, yeah, do you want to try passing? You know what I mean? Can I try my passing next round? And so I want to get better at retaining guard and stopping somebody from passing. You know what I mean? I play ecological games. I'm not fucking against, I'm not going to do that. Guys, it's just, we're talking about competition and the future of competition and what's right and what's real. Keep it real. When keeping it real goes right.
Let's not forget, most fights do have takedowns. Most takedowns are not exciting. So what are we really arguing about here? That teeny tiny chance someone can get an exciting takedown was taken away from them, which rarely happens anyways, even with these new. To me, what is boring is when someone refuses to engage, when someone wants to dance around on the outside and play anti-jiu-jitsu. That's boring. That's someone who's scared of grappling, scared of getting into the fight. They're just looking for that slight chance that they get this giant explosion and pass the guard without doing much real technique.
As I previously said, I don't want to psychoanalyze this guy. But he's inviting you to, because of what he's saying. This person who doesn't engage and stays on the outside is exactly a mirrored reflection of what he is asking to allow and is begging the question for, which is sitting down on the outside of the stand-up grappling portion and insisting that the other person engage them. Not engaging them, rather sitting backward and down and away. Many making a little bit of contact and then letting go, which is, once again, disingenuous. It's not really trying to make a grip and make contact. I'm letting go so that I can force him to pass my seated guard, okay, which doesn't make sense in any other situation. You would want to control something so you wouldn't get struck, but because we're in under this particular constraints, we don't have to worry about it, right? But hey, again, everything he is speaking right here in this clip, admittedly, is from his own perception and his own opinion, where he's basically just saying, well, I don't like takedowns. I mean, there's takedowns, but I mean, not all of them are exciting. Well, I mean, somebody might say the exact opposite. I think all takedowns are exciting. That's just a subjective argument, and he knows it, and he's just, once again, just trying to shame the viewer if they hold something contrary to him, so kind of ridiculous.
And let's not also forget, wrestling can be extremely boring. Someone laying on top, laying and praying and not really working a pass, that can be extremely boring. Playing guard can be extremely exciting. It has nothing to do with whether you did a takedown or not.
I don't know if he's looking up like bad 1950s marketing campaigns, but you could just say the opposite. Well, wrestling is exciting sometimes, and pulling guard and playing bottom can be boring. Like, if you just say the opposite, does it make it true? Like, I just don't understand what he think that means. That's not an argument. Like, I can't even develop and get into a momentum to start talking for 6 or 7 minutes here because what he's saying doesn't even fucking make any sense. Like, yeah, the opposite's true too, right? I could just say that, so what? And since there's so many people who complain about people pulling guard and sitting down on their ass, then there is people wrestling. Well, then maybe we should listen to the viewers and the people in Takes Democracy, or I don't know what the fuck you want to argue. I don't even want to argue from a place about democracy. Every fucking legitimate teacher, from Robert Drysdale to Josh Barnett to the numerous people that I've talked to on this channel so far, have all said, like, no, don't pull guard in you're not pulling guard in an MMA fight. I don't think you should pull guard. I don't think it's a good thing to do. I understand some people might be talking about the rule set. I understand this is what they want to do in this rule set, but none of them are like, yeah, I'm going to teach my students to pull guard. Not that they won't teach them the tactics or how it's done or, work on that. I mean, I'm not going to teach them, oh, you should go do this, go pull guard. You know what I mean? Like, you have to prepare for competition, so you might have to train through it a little bit. I wouldn't put past any of those great trainers to do something like that. It's just in terms of fight IQ, they're not going to go, I'm going to go and just sit guard. It just doesn't make any sense. His argument doesn't make any sense. Should have just left it at 30 seconds, but it's meh.
Another part when it comes to the boring part with the guard puller is they try to say it's the butt scooting, but I've basically already hit on this. If a person pulls guard correctly, they followed the rules, they made their grips, and then they sat to guard. If the person on top is running away and disengaging, that's the only way someone can even butt scoot. If they already got a hold of somebody and they sit down and they go to guard, if the person on top jumps right into guard passing and grappling, then it's literally impossible to butt scoot. Where are they going to butt scoot to? The guy's already there trying to fight. The person butt scooting is trying to make the fight happen. They did their part, they got to the bottom where they want to play, and now they just want to do jiu-jitsu, and the person on top is so scared of the person who's in the actual disadvantaged position that they're going to disengage and run away and force the person on bottom to butt scoot.
I think in the end here, because we're going to clip it here, we're almost at like an hour runtime. We see here that he's coping with the entire idea. I feel like he's not actually even trying to develop an idea anymore. Here's the problem with butt scooting. It assumes that the only movement that the body can take at that time is sitting up on their ass and literally scooting towards you. Not going to a quadrupedal position and scuttling toward your opponent, driving toward your opponent. It's not getting up to back to a bipedal position to try to get back on top or to take them down to the ground so you're on top. Rather, it's the laziest, most ridiculous, if not necessarily lazy in some cases, but the most ridiculous version of how you could possibly pursue taking that other person down and getting into grappling. It's like when you're at a construction site and you see this new guy and the way he decides to carry something is like on a 2x4 and balancing it like this, and he stacked it in a way where he couldn't see where he's walking, so he's blind and he's trying to walk like that. Like, what are you fucking doing, bro? Please stop. Please stop. It's just like seeing the most ridiculous version of what a person could do in that moment, and then people gaslighting you that it was ridiculous. Like, get up, do something else. Like, get back up and dive for another fucking contact. You're literally relying on the rules telling that other person that they must engage you while you're sitting down on the butt. It just makes no sense. And that is not engaging a person that's saying they have to engage you. Oh, well, if they make the right grips. Is that something that you care about? Because this guy glazes fucking Mike Musumeci. Glazes him. So, I mean, that's how he starts in a grappling match. At distance, not even with a grip. Okay? So, this whole it's just about if you get the grip. It's not even about that, really, is it? But for me, it really is about just sitting down in front of a person and then letting go and not trying to make for you. I'm gonna reach for you now. I'm gonna reach now. If you break grips, well, you have to just walk back toward me because we already started. Like, what? You should be getting the fuck back up. You shouldn't be able to just sit there. The only reason that you're allowed to is because of these constraints. Don't really say that you have to. It's the spirit of combat that should be stopping you at this point. But it looks like rules are coming in, boys. I don't know what rules he was talking about, rule changes, but I need to see that because I would love to report on it and read on it so that and hear their arguments for the rule changes, because it obviously is about not fucking pulling guard. So I'm for that and I want to see that. So all this is to say that his arguments here are just made on constantly gaslighting the other side, posing it as absurd, not why it is absurd, and then building straw men based on those positions that they were making absurd, and then taking them to another absurd degree, and then smashing those straw men. These are things that people are saying. He doesn't want to engage intellectually with the things that people are actually saying just from reflecting on it. Well, people tell me this and people that. Oh, well, how is it boring? You really want to know? Because you're just begging the question and you're just saying, oh, well, sometimes wrestling isn't exciting and guard play can be exciting. Like, you're coping and it just sounds so desperate at this point that other than it's been a long time running through this video so far again, I should probably clip this. It's also like, damn, this is getting desperate. And I'm going to again pick up from this last point again in the next video. So there'll be a couple things that I want to harp on that I might not be harping on right now this moment, because we've already basically done it several times in this video. So I want to thank everyone for watching through these videos. I love the traction that's getting on these videos. Thank you for watching. Appreciate it. Do you like the little things that I'm throwing up on screen, or would you just rather just me talk through it back and forth, just let it be a pure reaction video? What are your thoughts on the pulling of guard, sitting guard? Do you agree with me? What points do you think that you can actually respond to? There have been people who asked me what I thought after 3 videos, what I'm actually thinking. Are you listening? Like, each of these things have been an hour, and I'm not just going off on tangents every 5 seconds. I'm necessarily breaking down each point, which leads to tangents sometimes. I like stories. That all aside, this video has been tedious to say the least, but I think that we're getting somewhere. there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things I want to talk about that have been going on, like in the IBJJF worlds. If I knew that the next weekend following when I was training was going to be the IBJF Nogi Worlds in Vegas, I would have probably stayed around to watch and talk to people. But that aside, I am going back to Vegas at some point this year soon for Catch Con, and I'm going to be hopefully getting in the room over there at Drysdale's Zen Jiu-Jitsu, and maybe some other places in Las Vegas. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like if you like this content, comment once again if you want to discuss this, and subscribe if you like this kind of content. And as I always say, stay up, stay vigilant, stay locked and loaded, stay brutal. Shalom, shalom, peace in.